There are moments in life when the greatest wound does not come from a fist, nor from an obvious betrayal, but from a sentence spoken quietly, almost casually as if it were nothing, and yet inside that sentence lives something darker than anger. It is hatred disguised as indifference. People often believe hatred looks loud, explosive, dramatic. But the truth is far more disturbing. Hatred is often refined. It hides behind everyday language. It seeps into conversations through phrases that appear normal, even harmless, yet carry the full weight of intentional psychological damage. If you learn to listen closely, you will realize that words are never just words. They are mirrors of the unconscious. They reveal what a person truly feels beneath the mask they wear. One of the most revealing signs that someone hates you deeply is when they speak a phrase that invalidates your very existence, your efforts, or your pain. The phrase is simple, but its meaning is brutal. "Oh, I never asked you to do that." And on the surface, it seems like a statement of fact. But psychologically, it is something else entirely. It is a weapon. It is the rejection of your value. It is the erasure of your intention. It is the cold dismissal of your humanity. When someone says this exact phrase in response to your care, your support, or your sacrifice, they are not merely expressing disagreement. They are communicating contempt. They are telling you, indirectly, that your presence is unwanted, your giving is meaningless, and your suffering does not matter. This phrase often appears after you have tried to help, after you have extended yourself emotionally, after you have done something out of loyalty or affection. And the person does not simply decline your effort, or they strike at the soul behind it. They want you to feel foolish for caring. They want you to question your worth. That is not accidental. That is intentional, because hatred is not always expressed through violence. Sometimes hatred expresses itself through humiliation, through reduction, through psychological invalidation. When someone says, "Oh, I never asked you to do that," what they are truly saying is, "Hayu, you mean nothing to me." The unconscious mind does not speak randomly. Every phrase carries the emotional truth of the speaker. When a person harbors resentment, envy, or hostility, they often cannot confront it directly, so it escapes sideways. It leaks out in dismissive remarks, sarcastic comments, subtle cruelty. This is the shadow at work. The shadow is the part of the psyche that contains what one refuses to acknowledge within themselves are anger, jealousy, insecurity, hatred. When someone cannot face their own inner darkness, they project it outward. They look for someone to blame. They look for someone to punish. And often the person they target is not their enemy, but the one who reminds them of what they lack. That is why the most intentional harm often comes from those closest to you. Strangers rarely invest energy into destroying you, but someone who secretly hates you will, because your light irritates their unresolved wounds. Your kindness exposes their emptiness. Your progress awakens their shame, and rather than confronting themselves, they try to shrink you. They try to damage you emotionally, so they feel less small inside. The phrase becomes a quiet form of emotional stabbing. It is meant to make you retreat, to make you stop giving, to make you doubt your instinct to love. This is how psychological sabotage works. The person does not always scream, "So I hate you," and instead, they dismantle you piece by piece. They respond to your generosity with disdain. They respond to your concern with coldness. They respond to your vulnerability with dismissal. And slowly you begin to feel that your existence is a burden, that your efforts are pointless, that love is something you should be ashamed of offering. That is exactly the goal, because hatred does not simply want distance. Hatred wants domination. Hatred wants you to suffer internally. When you hear that phrase, you must listen beyond the words. Ask yourself, why would someone react with contempt to something done with sincerity? Why would they choose to wound rather than clarify? That is where intention reveals itself. People who care may disagree, but they do not invalidate. They may set boundaries, but they do not erase your worth. The phrase "a why never asked you to do," that "ow" is not a boundary. It is a punishment. Many people stay trapped in toxic relationships because they rationalize such cruelty. They tell themselves, "Oh, maybe they were stressed. Oh, maybe I misunderstood." But the psyche always knows. The body knows. The heart knows. The wound left behind is evidence. Emotional harm is not measured only by what is said, but by what is intended. And when someone repeatedly speaks in ways that make you feel smaller, ashamed, unwanted, you are witnessing intentional damage. The unconscious often reveals hatred through repetition. One dismissive phrase may be accidental, but a pattern is never accidental. A pattern is character. When someone constantly undermines your intentions, mocks your feelings, or invalidates your existence, they are showing you the truth of their inner world. They may smile while doing it. They may pretend innocence. But the emotional effect is always the same. You leave feeling diminished. The most powerful thing you can do is not to argue, not to beg for understanding, not to prove your goodness. The most powerful thing is recognition. To see clearly, to understand that the phrase is not about you doing something wrong. It is about them wanting you to feel wrong for existing. This is the moment where inner authority is born. Because once you recognize intentional harm, you stop offering your soul to those who feed on breaking it. You are not made to be someone's emotional punching bag. You are not made to shrink in order to keep someone else comfortable. The psyche demands wholeness. And sometimes wholeness requires separation. It requires the painful clarity that not everyone who speaks to you wishes you well. Some people speak with hidden venom. Some people smile with hatred behind their eyes. And when they say, "Oh, I never asked you to do that," what they reveal is not your failure, but their contempt. The deeper lesson is not simply to identify the phrase, but to understand its psychological meaning. Hatred does not always come dressed as hatred. Sometimes it comes dressed as dismissal. Sometimes it comes disguised as casual language.